Most people do not actually have a retirement plan. They have a hope, a rough age in their head, and a spreadsheet that breaks the moment markets move faster than their emotions can handle. Tonight I want to show you a different way to think about freedom, and it starts with a small piece of math that can quietly predict the month your paycheck stops mattering. Not your net worth headline, not a random millionaire target, not a social media number that sounds impressive but pays nothing. I'm talking about the day your income stream replaces labor. And the strange part is this: once you see the pattern, retirement starts looking less like a dream and more like a countdown that has already begun. Most people track balances. Wealthy people track cash flow. But people who actually exit work on their terms track something even more powerful: the speed at which cash flow doubles. That is where the rule of 72 becomes dangerous in the best possible way, because it turns vague ambition into a measurable timeline you can test, adjust, and accelerate. If your dividend income is growing at a certain rate every year, you can estimate how quickly it doubles, and each doubling gets you closer to replacing your job. My name is Dave, and if you want practical math for building freedom, hit like, subscribe, and tell me this in the comments. Which assumption in your retirement plan feels weakest right now, and why? Because for most people, the weakest assumption is not discipline. It is time. They either underestimate compounding, or they overestimate how long they must stay trapped before options finally appear. Let me show you what I mean with a simple example that sounds ordinary at first, then becomes life-changing once you map it across real years instead of abstract percentages. Imagine your portfolio currently produces $10,000 per year in dividends and distributions, and your real target for basic freedom is $80,000 per year in spendable income. Most people look at that gap and feel defeated. They think, I am only 1/8 of the way there. But mathematically, that is not the right lens. The better lens is doubling cycles. 10 becomes 20, 20 becomes 40, 40 becomes 80. That means you are not forever away. You are 3 doublings away. 3 doublings feels completely different from needing an extra $70,000 because one frame creates anxiety while the other creates a path. Now the critical question becomes this: how many years does each doubling take in your specific system, with your yield, your growth, your reinvestment habits, and your contribution rate? This is where the rule of 72 enters. Take 72 and divide it by your expected annual growth rate, and the result estimates your doubling time. If your dividend income grows at 9% per year, your income doubles in about 8 years. 72 divided by 9 gives you 8. If your income growth rate is 12%, your doubling time drops to about 6 years. 72 divided by 12 gives you 6. That difference compounds into entire chapters of your life. This is why retirement planning based only on age targets is so unreliable. Saying I want to retire at 60 tells me nothing about the velocity of your income machine. 2 people can both be 45 years old, both save consistently, and still have completely different retirement timelines because one is growing income at 6% and the other at 12%. That is the doubling speedometer. It measures velocity, not just distance. And once you know your speed, uncertainty starts shrinking immediately. Now let us sharpen the concept. I am not talking only about portfolio value growth. I'm talking specifically about income growth because retirement is funded by cash flow, not screenshots. A portfolio can rise nicely while paying weak income. Another portfolio can look slower on price appreciation, but build a stronger path to labor replacement through reliable distributions and dividend growth. This is why people get confused comparing strategies online. They are comparing balances while chasing an income goal. Those are related, but they are not the same game. So step 1 is defining your freedom number clearly. Your freedom number is not your dream life fantasy budget. It is the annual expense level your portfolio must cover. Start with your actual yearly spending in today's dollars. Housing, food, utilities, insurance, transportation, taxes, healthcare, and a buffer for surprises. Use honest numbers, not aspirational numbers. Let us say your current annual expenses are $65,000, but you want margin and peace, so you set your freedom number at $75,000. Good. That number gives your math a destination. Without a destination, compounding becomes motivational content. With a destination, compounding becomes engineering. Now step 2. Measure current passive income. Not what your portfolio might produce someday. Not projected yield on cost stories. What it is producing now, annualized in real dollars. Maybe your portfolio currently throws off $12,000 per year. Maybe it is $24,000. Maybe it is $4,000. The starting point matters less than the honesty. Once you have both numbers, divide the target by current passive income. That ratio tells you how many times larger your income stream must become. If your target is $72,000 and current passive income is $9,000, the ratio is 8. That means you need your income to become 8 times larger, and 8 times larger is beautiful because 8 is 2 raised to the third power. That means exactly 3 doubling cycles from where you are now. Notice what happened there. A huge emotional gap turned into a countable sequence. You can now point to a map and say, I am here, and I need 3 jumps. If your ratio is 4, you need 2 doublings. If your ratio is 16, you need 4 doublings. Suddenly, retirement is not mysterious, it is staged. This stage-based thinking is powerful during market declines because drawdowns stop feeling like personal attacks and start feeling like temporary noise inside a longer cycle. When your portfolio drops in price but your income plan stays intact, the timeline may bend emotionally, yet the math remains surprisingly stable if reinvestment continues. That does not mean ignore risk. It means stop confusing volatility with failure. A falling market can still be a productive market when you are buying future income at better prices. Now let us talk about the variable that controls almost everything, your annual income growth rate. This is the number that determines your doubling constant. Your growth rate is not just one thing. It is a blend of dividend raises, reinvested dividends, new contributions, and the prices at which those contributions get deployed. That is why 2 investors holding some of the same assets can still experience very different timelines. Behavior changes the growth rate, contributions change the growth rate, tax choices change the growth rate. Let us compare 2 simplified paths. Investor A grows passive income at 6%. Investor B grows passive income at 12%. Same destination, different speedometer. At 6% growth, the rule of 72 estimates a doubling every 12 years. At 12% growth, the doubling arrives in about 6 years. If both investors need 3 doublings, Investor A might need roughly 36 years, while Investor B might need roughly 18 years. Same math framework, wildly different life outcome. That is why small improvements matter so much. Moving from 8% to 10% sounds minor, but it cuts doubling time from about 9 years to roughly 7.2 years. Across 3 or 4 cycles, that difference can pull your retirement date forward by many years, and that is before we even improve contributions. Now let us add a practical layer most people miss. Your growth rate will not be perfectly constant every year, and that is okay. The rule of 72 is a planning approximation, not a crystal ball. Its power is not perfect prediction on day 1. Its power is giving you a measurable baseline to update quarterly. Think of it like a navigation system. If you know your current speed and destination, you can estimate arrival time, then recalculate as conditions change. This removes one of the biggest psychological traps in wealth building, the feeling that you are working hard but have no idea whether you are actually getting closer. You are getting closer if your income is growing. You are getting closer faster if your growth rate rises. You are getting closer dramatically faster if you raise growth and contributions together. So let us build the map in real terms. Suppose your freedom number is $80,000. Your current passive income is $10,000. You need 3 doublings. Assume your blended income growth rate is 9%. The rule of 72 gives you about 8 years per doubling. 3 doublings implies roughly 24 years. That sounds long until you remember this model assumes a stable average and no optimization. Most people can improve the timeline through reinvestment discipline and contribution upgrades. Now suppose you increase your savings rate, reinvest everything, and optimize account placement so your effective income growth rate rises to 12%. Your doubling time drops to about 6 years. 3 doublings now suggest roughly 18 years instead of 24. You just pulled the date forward by around 6 years. 6 years is not a rounding error. 6 years is a school cycle. 6 years is the difference between burning out at work and leaving with energy still intact. And this is exactly why I call the Rule of 72 a retirement countdown tool. It shows how a small percentage improvement becomes a real-life calendar shift. Now let us address high-yield versus high-growth portfolios, because this is where people often get stuck in unnecessary arguments instead of measuring their own path. A higher-yield portfolio may start with stronger immediate cash flow, which reduces the number of doublings required to reach your freedom number. A lower-yield but faster-growing portfolio may start slower, but if income growth compounds faster, the doubling constant shrinks and the later stages accelerate dramatically. Neither category is automatically superior. The real question is, which combination gives you the best timeline with risk you can actually tolerate and sustain? Some people need visible income now to stay disciplined. Others can handle lower income today in exchange for faster compounding. The correct strategy is the one you can repeat. And remember, your timeline is not determined by yield alone. It is determined by the growth of the income stream. That includes raises, reinvestment, and ongoing contributions. This is why I want you thinking in income doublings, not just portfolio size milestones. A portfolio milestone without cash flow context can produce false confidence. You can hit a 7-figure portfolio and still feel trapped if income is too low, taxes are unmanaged, or withdrawals feel fragile. Numbers on paper are not the same as permission. Permission comes when the income engine reliably covers your life. That is the real crossover point, and the Rule of 72 helps you see the path there. Now let us accelerate the countdown. There are 3 levers you can pull: increase growth rate, increase contributions, and protect compounding from unnecessary tax drag and friction. Reinvesting dividends is the first lever. When you spend income too early, you interrupt the doubling engine. When you reinvest, you feed the engine that replaces labor later. Even partial reinvestment can matter. Reinvesting half instead of none may boost your growth rate enough to shorten a cycle, especially in the early and middle phases. The second lever is contribution increases. This is where small raises, side income, and expense reductions create what I call time jumps in your retirement map. An extra $200 per month may look small in isolation, but deployed consistently into productive assets, it can raise the income growth trajectory and reduce years. A tax refund redirected to investments. A bonus partially invested. One subscription stack cut and reallocated. These actions are boring, but boring math is what changes retirement dates. The third lever is account optimization. Where you hold assets and how taxes affect reinvestment can either speed up or slow down your doubling cycles. If 2 portfolios generate the same gross income, but one loses more to avoidable taxes or fees, its real growth rate falls, and the doubling constant stretches. That is why reviewing account structure matters in 2026, not for complexity, but for velocity. Every drag on compounding is a delay on freedom. Now, I want to make this more concrete with a countdown example you can adapt. Say you currently earn $15,000 per year in passive income. Your freedom number is $60,000 per year. That means your target is 4 times current income, which equals 2 doubling cycles. If your blended income growth rate is 8%, the Rule of 72 estimates about 9 years per doubling, so your initial estimate is roughly 18 years. But suppose you raise contributions and improve reinvestment discipline enough to push your effective growth to 10%. Now your doubling time becomes about 7.2 years. 2 doublings at roughly 7.2 years each gives an estimate around 14.4 years. That single change can move your exit date forward by more than 3 years. And if inflation is running hotter than expected, this framework still helps because you can increase the freedom number and instantly see how many additional doublings are required. This is an important point. Your retirement date must be checked against purchasing power, not just nominal income. Inflation can silently move the finish line. If your projected $60,000 buys less than you expected, adjust the target upward. Do not panic. Recalculate. The math is still your ally. In practice, I suggest revisiting this model every quarter. Update your current passive income, estimate your trailing 12-month growth rate, and compare it with your prior assumption. If your actual growth rate is higher than expected, celebrate and recalculate. If it is lower, adjust contributions, reinvestment or asset mix before years quietly slip away. This routine turns retirement planning into a mechanical process. No more emotional guessing after every market headline. You become a builder reading gauges, not a passenger reading fear. And when the model starts showing a believable month and year, something changes psychologically. Work stress loses some power because you can finally see the edge of the tunnel. You stop asking, "Can I retire someday?" and start asking, "What needs tightening to protect the date I am already tracking?" That shift is enormous. It replaces fantasy with responsibility, and surprisingly, it often makes the journey calmer, because progress becomes visible even when the market feels chaotic. Now let us talk about exactness, because the title says predict your retirement date exactly, and I want to be precise about what exact means here. Exact does not mean the future obeys you perfectly. Exact means your process can produce a specific month-based estimate grounded in current math, then refine it repeatedly as new data arrives. Think of an airplane route. The destination is exact. The pilot still makes course corrections. Your retirement timeline works the same way. You estimate the number of remaining doublings, calculate your current doubling constant, then map the projected completion window to a month and year. As your income growth changes, your estimated month changes. But instead of living in uncertainty, you are now managing a live countdown tied to measurable variables. That is the difference between hoping and engineering. Hope says, maybe by 60. Engineering says, based on current trajectory, March of 2041, updated quarterly. And if that date feels too far away, that is not bad news. It is useful news because now you know exactly which levers matter and how hard they must move. You can test scenarios. What if I raise contributions by 10%? What if I reinvest 100% for 5 more years? What if I reduce expenses by $5,000? Each change either lowers the freedom number, raises the growth rate, or both. In other words, each change shortens the countdown or reduces required doublings. That is how you turn personal finance into a strategy game with clear rules instead of a foggy emotional battle that drains motivation. At some point, the math will show your portfolio income covering your baseline expenses with margin, and that is when labor becomes optional instead of mandatory. Then the final exit is not a leap of faith. It is a verified handoff from one income source to another, checked against inflation and updated with real numbers. You still need risk management, cash reserves, and common sense, but the core transition becomes mechanical. The uncertainty shrinks because your map was built from cash flow cycles. So, if retirement has felt vague, overwhelming, or too distant to touch, start with this tonight. Calculate your freedom number, measure current passive income, and count your doublings. Then estimate your income growth rate, divide 72 by that rate, and write down your first projected retirement month, even if it feels imperfect. Because once a date exists, your brain changes. You stop drifting. You start building. And every contribution, every reinvested dividend, every smart decision becomes a visible move toward freedom. That is the hidden math of financial freedom. Not a miracle stock, not a lucky break, a repeatable countdown powered by doubling cycles and patient execution. And the best part is that your future retirement date is not hiding from you. It is already inside your current numbers, waiting for you to measure it correctly.